I think we have just right about enough to maybe give it a full head start. Please feel free to continue putting your comments in the chat. We can look through them again later as we go on, just so we can, because I'm very conscious of time and I know how this type of webinars gets so interesting and we sometimes might get carried away. So we'll give it a head start now. I'll introduce the agenda, what we're going to cover today. The next section will be about IJOPM, and that's going to be handled by Jens and Hugo and Constantine, maybe. Then we'll go straight into talking or hearing from our speakers, our scholars within Africa context. We have three of them, Anastasia, Jamal, and Amin, and they're going to come up in the order as shown. I understand there might be a need to sort of, ask questions immediately, but if you're able to either put your questions in the chat, and then we'll come to them later, that would be great, just so we can run along and attach some order to what we're going to be doing. So we have kept Q&A there at that point in time, and we would like to leave it that way. Next steps, we'll talk about what will happen next, and then we'll go on from there. Thank you. No, next slide, please. Okay, so without further ado, I would hand over to Jens, who is the current one of the current editors in chief for the journal. Over to you, Jens.
And I hand over directly to you, Goya. That's the role as the editor in chief, you say.
Okay, no problem. So guys, thank you so much. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It depends on where you are. So I'm Hugo. So I will provide some information about the new editorial team for IJOPM or IJOPM. Because as you can see from this slide, we had 6 team members from this year. So in the top row, in the center, you can see Jens from Bath, and also in the same row on the top right-hand corner, you can see Martin from Neoma Business School in France, and in the same row, in the top left-hand corner, you can see it's me, Hugo, from Liverpool in the UK. So three of us are the new editor-in-chief for the journal from this year, in fact, from this month. And at the same time, we had support from 2 new editorial assistants for the journal, which are shown in the bottom row in the right-hand corner in the bottom row. And then definitely in the center of the same row, they are the editorial assistants for the journal. And at the same time, we also had Constantine, who has been the editor-in-chief for the journal in the past few years. And by the way, he's in the bottom right-hand corner in this slide. And he will be with us as a co-editor for 1 more year in this year to enable a smooth transition of the new editorial team. So again, we had 16 members for the new team, and we start our term from this month in this year. Okay. So maybe the next slide. And then the next one is about the mission and the scope of journal. As many of you should know, IJOPM or IJOPM is a journal about operations and supply chain management. So it means that we publish research relevant to operations and supply chain. And the mission of our journal is to publish the leading edge innovative research that has the potential to safely advance the field of operations and supply chain management, both from a theoretical and practical aspect. So it means that we view the journal as a top journal in our field, and we pay attention to both the theoretical contribution and also the practical contribution. By the way, I should mention that IJOPM is focused on empirical research. So just in case you haven't submitted papers to IJOPM before, it means that we will not consider papers based on analytical papers or based on modeling papers or OR papers. So it means that when you decide whether you would like to submit your papers to IJOPM, you need to think about whether the methods, the research methods used in your research fit with the scope of the journal. Otherwise, your paper may be desk rejected just because the methods do not fit into the scope of the journal. Okay. So again, we just focus on analytical research papers. And as mentioned, we emphasize both the academic and also the practical reference. It means that for academic, it means that the papers submitted to IJOPM should have a significant contribution and meaningful contribution to the literature on OSCM or operations and supply chain management. And as mentioned, you need to pay attention to the analytical context of the papers. And for the practical, it means that the paper submitted to IJOPM should be relevant to the actual practice in operations and supply chain management or relevant to the policy charge. And again, so for this slide, the major point is that first, we are a practical journal. So we will not consider OR paper or analytical paper. And second, we focus on both the theoretical contribution and also the practical contribution. So it means that your papers should contribute to theory or literature and also should have some insightful implications for practice. So I will pass back to Jens to talk about the vision and also to provide some information about the current status of the journal.
Thank you so much, Hugo. Unfortunately, Martin isn't here, so I could have passed it on to him, but I think it's up to me to do that job. So yeah, very warm welcome, obviously, also from my side. It's great to see you all here in that sort of webinar format as well. So my name is Jens Röhrig. I'm a professor of supply chain innovation based in Bath in the UK. And I have been involved with the journal for quite a while. And as Hugo already said, I'm part of the editorial team that just really took over this month as well. And we're obviously delighted to have Konstantin here as well, who is staying with us and tackling all the difficult questions. I think that come from various sides, I guess. So as it, I guess, very customary in terms of new teams hopefully have a vision. We definitely do have a vision here. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just to say, our vision is really split in sort of 5 key themes around obviously soliciting high quality research. I think that's a given for top ranked journals such as IJOPM. But we're also very keen and are currently actually already working on improving a number of processes that hopefully will benefit the submitting authors in terms of the experience with our manuscript going through the review process, but also hopefully help our reviewer teams as well to deliver their full capabilities, obviously, for the journal as well. You can find us obviously in webinars, as you can see here. We also present at a number of different conferences, including sort of the home conference, EUROMA, so the European Operations Management Conference. We will be at the Academy this year, and we will be present at some other local national conferences as well, promoting the journal and obviously giving you an opportunity to engage with us as well. One of the things that we are very keen on is around supporting colleagues, not just obviously helping to support in terms of improving a skill set in terms of publishing, reviewing for the journal, and contributing to the wider community, academic community, but also helping colleagues to translate some of their work into outputs that really drive businesses, public, private organizations, not-for-profit organizations, and even policymakers. So if you're not aware of the journal, I definitely invite you to have a look at the website. While we are on the process of updating the website, it does include a number of different and interesting points, including our impact pathway section where you can submit much shorter pieces which are much more focused for sort of business and policy community as well. And again, you can meet us, obviously webinars, but I also suggest you do join us in case you haven't done so on our LinkedIn profile for the journal. And in the next slide, if Dom doesn't mind passing on. Yep. So in the next slide, you see the QR code. So feel free to use the QR code. It should work. I did test it 5 minutes before the webinar, but who knows, technology for you. That should lead you directly to our LinkedIn IJOPM journal website, which we will really use very heavily in terms of communicating up-to-date news. So while you can use the journal website in terms of submissions and have a good idea of what the journal is about, the LinkedIn website that we have for the journal is really helpful for you to receive the newest information in terms of special issues, in terms of published work, and any also initiatives that we obviously have in store. So in case you haven't, feel free to join us, obviously. Yeah, so just maybe a minute or so to briefly talk about the current status of the journal. So as we said, we very recently took over from Konstantin and team, and they have left us a very healthy journal in terms of healthy pipeline, in terms of submissions. So we're up to just over 1,100 submissions per year now. A normal kind of acceptance rate for top journals around the 8% mark. And one thing that we're really proud of is a diversity in terms of submissions from colleagues. So in terms of diversity when it comes to topics, obviously, I guess that's in the title of the journal, in terms of operation, production, and supply chain management, but also diversity when it comes to methodologies, as you could briefly pointed out, and probably even more so diversity when it comes to authors' locations, so where our colleagues are located. It's a very much of a mix, and not just a journal necessarily focusing on North America and Europe. So we're very happy about that. But again, we saw that this is a good time to further promote the journal and further raise awareness across other countries where we maybe feel there could be even more submissions coming to the journal, and then hopefully accepted papers further down the line. In terms of the review process, we have sort of streamlined that, and Konstantin and team have done that as well previously. So very briefly, without further details, and very happy for you to have a look as well online on the journal website for more information. But your submitted manuscript basically goes to the editorial assistant / editorial managers, so Son and Desiree, for a quick check in terms of fit and formatting points. Then it will come to one of us as the editors-in-chief, so Hugo, Martin, or myself. And then we will have another look at the manuscript to check in terms of fit again, quality of the submission. And then it may possibly go out to at least 2 reviewers that are obviously experienced colleagues to review your manuscript, and then it comes back to us actually. We will have another look at it, and then possibly, depending again on the reviews you receive for the manuscript, it will go out to an associate editor, and he or she will bring together the various review comments that you receive for the manuscript and add further comments before everything. So all the comments, all the reviews in your manuscript comes back to us as the editor-in-chief, whoever the handling editor might be. And then we will go back to you in terms of a sort of initial decision for the initial submission. Yeah, so I mean, without further ado, really, and not to take too much time away from Dom and Anniken, and obviously our brilliant speakers that have put together a very exciting webinar. So very much looking forward to that. I just want to say again, have a look at our LinkedIn profile, obviously, in terms of the journal. Follow us. That's really where you can find all the up-to-date information in terms of special issue calls, call for any other submissions that you have. We will also update the website as well as have more information on LinkedIn in due course in terms of this particular initiative. So you will find more information there. And yeah, hopefully you will be part of the IJOPM community if you haven't been already. It's nice to have you here. And yeah, over to Dom and Anniken, and looking forward to a great webinar. Thanks.
Thanks, Jan. So I will be taking over by introducing you to the Africa Initiative. All right, so the motivation behind this initiative came from the prior editors of the journal, their encounter with some scholars in Africa at conferences, and their own understanding of the literature, I mean, in terms of where knowledge is coming from. So based on that, they deemed it fit to introduce this initiative as a way of expanding operations and supply chain management knowledge developed and also emerging from Africa. So that was one of the major concerns that inspired this initiative. And the other concern was some kind of disconnect between scholars based in or from Africa and the broader community. So there was also the need to provide a platform that can bridge scholars from Africa, connect them to the broader community. And in so doing, to provide opportunity for Africa-based scholars to engage more with the journal and beyond. So in response to these challenges, the journal has established a session that it's going to provide some developmental support for researchers from and also based in Africa. Okay, and ultimately, it's a way of demonstrating its social responsibility to the society. So the current team comprises the journal editors, the four journal editors that have already been introduced. Myself and Aneken will be playing coordinating roles, and we have two other scholars who are also very familiar with the African context who will be supporting us in this regard. Okay, so we have three broad objectives. So ultimately, we seek to use this initiative to improve quality and quantity outcomes in three areas. In terms of the research we do in Africa, the volume of research we do and the quality of research, and similarly, the publication that come out from Africa, and also the number of colleagues in Africa that will be involved in the journal review processes, not just in this journal, but ultimately in the long run, get more involved in operations and supply chain related journals. So that is what we seek to achieve in the long run. But our immediate objectives are around improving skills and experiences along these three areas. And like I said initially, the immediate response or the objective that we seek to achieve is to provide a platform and support for our colleagues in Africa and also from Africa, and then the broader community that may be interested in Africa-related issues. So the strategies for achieving this, I've briefly touched on some of them. For the short-term objective, we have already established a session in IJOPM, and after this webinar, you can submit your paper, okay? And the immediate strategy, the intermediate strategy, which revolves around upscaling, includes involving scholars from Africa and also based in Africa in review activities. I'll explain more about that later on. And also delivering workshops for scholars based in Africa and also from Africa, and then providing mentoring support for these scholars. In the long run, we seek to broaden our scope by developing network and collaborations within the broader community. So in terms of publishing through this initiative, there are three-step processes that scholars may go through. The first step is optional, so you don't necessarily have to submit the proposal. It requires authors who may want feedback on their work to submit a proposal to the team. There is an email provided. We will update the journal's website with this information. So you can submit your research proposal to the team for comment and also for guidance. So ultimately, you want to demonstrate in the proposal that your research has the potential to make interesting contributions and that it is feasible in terms of the timelines and the resources that you may require to do it. And we seek to provide feedback to researchers within 30 days. So the next stage is it just follows the normal manuscript submission processes of the journal. So you have to follow the journal's guidelines provided on its website to prepare and also submit your manuscript using the platform available on the website. And then the review process will also follow the normal review process, except that there are some few changes here. What we seek to do is to, in as much as possible, involve people who are knowledgeable about the African context, okay, in the review process, and also include as much as possible scholars currently based in Africa. Like we said, we seek to use this process to help them develop the experience and the skill in the review process. So that is one thing that we seek to do in the review process. Other than that, all the other process, the processes will be the same as that of the journal. Okay, so it is time to hear from some OSCM scholars based in Africa who have been making some interesting contributions. They will be sharing what they've been working on and some specific topics that we have assigned to them. They will be talking about them. So the first is Anastasia, who will be talking about her experience in publishing in the journal. And then the next is Jamal, who will be walking us through some opportunities for conducting research in Africa. And then the final speaker is Amin, who will be talking about the challenges in researching in Africa and also publishing using African data set and how we can address such issues. So we will start with the presentations. So Anastasia, if you are ready, you can share your slides. But before that, Aneken will be presenting a brief bio about Anastasia.
Okay, thank you very much, Dom, for that good introduction. So, just like Dom said, our first speaker is Professor Anastasia Mamabolo, who happens to be a professor at University of Pretoria Gordon Institute of Business Science in South Africa. She has a main research around institutions on explaining entrepreneurial and business management activities in the African context. Anastasia happens to also teach research design and methodology at postgraduate level. She's the head of accounting, finance, economic research, and statistics department at the GIBS Institute. And she's also the APSA Chair of Entrepreneurship. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Anastasia Mamabolo.
Thank you so much for a lovely introduction. Please confirm if you can hear me and see my presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues. It is such a privilege to be here with you this afternoon to share our lived experiences of publishing in the International Journal of Operations and Productions Management. We are really excited about the Africa initiative, and I hope that we will take advantage of what has been presented to us so that we can improve the quality of our research and take our ideas out there. So my topic is not a difficult one, is really sharing how the journey went for us to get published in the journal. So the perspective that we are adopting, even from the school, is to focus more on healthcare management. So by my profession, my junior degree was actually in healthcare sciences before I moved over to business management. I qualified as an optometrist. So healthcare has always been important in my life. And when I got to work at a business school, so I reconnected with my passion for healthcare. So the position that we are taking is that we need to empower healthcare also from a management perspective and not only focus on the technical aspect of it. And this is where the big project that we published started, looking at the operations and supply chain management in Africa, but from a healthcare management perspective. And as we know, the African context is very diverse. So the institutional dynamics in the different countries are absolutely challenging and they are different. So when you go from one country to the next, they are different. And even within the country, so you realize that different states have different institutional dynamics, and all of those poses challenges in our operations and supply chain activities. So what we know about healthcare management research is that there is a lot of a research that has focused mostly on the inadequate resources, looking at capital, looking at, it could be individuals working within the healthcare settings or individuals who are in management. It could be the money, the funding that is required to run public institutions. And a lot of research that has been conducted focuses on the technical aspects of healthcare management and not so much into the actual running of the activities or of the managerial activities. And there is a lot of focus on the public policy, and a lot of colleagues in that space are publishing around the policies that affect healthcare delivery. And some research focuses on patients' care satisfaction, and there's really limited research that focuses on the overall operations and supply chain management. And this is where our project came in place, where we really wanted to explore the various aspects of operations within healthcare management research. So one of them being ignited, of course, by COVID was vaccine manufacturing processes. That it was really clear that we are so behind in Africa when it comes to vaccine manufacturing, and also the partnerships between public and private institutions in the supply of essential drugs. So we really don't know so much about what is happening in that space, but what we know is the technical production processes of the essential drugs, and hospital operational processes and resource planning within our public institutions. Again, they are not that well documented. And another issue that is of interest, especially today in the digital era, is the notion of digital technology and how it can be used to enhance our supply chain processes and actually make them much more resilient than they are. And again, this space is also not well researched, and also the participation in the global medical supply chain. So in our case, we decided to focus on one pillar, and that was the vaccine manufacturing processes, and really try to understand what is happening in this space. So this leads us into a very nice intersection between healthcare and operations and supply chain management, an area that we will be exploring through a stream that we are running at the business school, focusing on MBA in healthcare management. So this project is the one that we decided to focus on, looking at the influence of institutional logics on vaccine development and production and distribution in Africa. So this was a project that was started from a master's research, and we developed that idea to a point where we were able to produce, to publish out of it. Basically, what our study looked at is how do institutions really have or influence the vaccine development in our country. And when we looked at the institutional logics, we basically just focused on the standards, the principles that guides behavior. And we decided to focus on the two logics, at least from the conceptualization of the paper, So we looked at how the state logic, which is represented by government, and the notions that there are regulations that govern how individuals have to behave or conduct themselves. And also it looks at how firms can conduct themselves. So we looked at the state logic, and we also looked at the market logic in terms of how is the product market of vaccines looking like? Is there enough capital to support the vaccine development? So we looked at these two logics and how they influenced vaccine development in Africa. And as you already know, Africa is really not doing so much when it comes to vaccine production. So that is where we really wanted to understand the influence of the institutional logics. We decided to approach this project from a multiple case study perspective, where we looked at companies in Senegal, in Morocco, Nigeria, and South Africa. And we chose the Francophone countries because they do have active vaccine manufacturing processes. And we looked at Nigeria. There were some processes that started but stopped. And what we saw in Nigeria is that we have entrepreneurial firms that are emerging to participate in vaccine manufacturing. And of course, South Africa, it is a little bit advanced in terms of vaccine manufacturing. And we wanted to understand how the different logics influence the vaccine manufacturing. And indeed, we found that not a single logic is influential. It is just a constellation of these logics. Is the state working with the corporate logic, which we discovered from the data, and the market logic together influencing the vaccine manufacturing processes. So and within the vaccine manufacturing, per each stage, there will be a particular logic that influence vaccine manufacturing. So that is the overview of the paper that we wrote. And our positive experiences during the publishing process is that we had really a supportive editorial and peer review team. Constantine and Martin are on the call, and we are absolutely grateful for the support that they gave us right from the beginning until the end of the process. And the editor and the reviewers were absolutely interested in the African story that we wanted to tell. And it really takes someone to believe in what you are saying for them to support you through the journey. And we are absolutely grateful for that. And we also had a very wonderful relationship with our associate editor, who was really involved in getting us through the line. It's almost like we had a psychological contract with our associate editor. He knew, or they knew that they were expecting work from us. And when we got the feedback, we made sure that we addressed the comments from the associate editor, and they didn't have to wait long for us to communicate back. So it was really a wonderful working relationship. And the quality of the feedback was absolutely the highlight. So they appreciated the African context and were interested in learning more about it. And the feedback was, of course, challenging, direct, engaged, and constructive. In other words, they told us where we went wrong and what we needed to do, and where we were actually excelling. They told us, we actually like this, please continue with that. The other important thing was hand-holding us to improve the theorizing and the contribution to literature. So what we had was just a wonderful context and the problems that we were experiencing within the context, but not really able to articulate the theoretical contribution. So the practical contribution and policy contribution was there, but the gap in the literature was where we actually struggled. And the other thing about the feedback was that it was written in simple and clear academic language that we could absolutely interpret and knew what we wanted to do. And absolutely, the review process was amazing. It was the first time we really experienced the speedy review process with the editorial team that was highly engaged. And in terms of the timelines, we started the project in 2022. And in 2023, that is when we actually submitted the paper for review. 2023, rather, November. That is where we submitted the paper. So we spent almost 2 full years trying to solidify the argument and the contribution of the study. And when we submitted it in November of 2023, so we actually got feedback in January. So you can see that they stick to their timelines, and we received measure revisions. At this stage, we're so excited because we thought we were going to get a rejection. And thereafter, we submitted our measure revisions on the 15th of March. And just within few days, we got feedback that said we had minor revisions to work on. And as you can see, we're also working very hard with the editorial team to ensure that the timelines that they gave us, we actually met them. And after we submitted the 28th, on the 7th of April, that after we got the minor revisions, so we worked on them and then submitted them again on the 7th of April, and we received our conditional acceptance within a few days after submitting our measure revisions. And here there was a lot of work that went into working on the manuscript. We were not sleeping at all until we got accepted for publication. So you can see that once we started working with the editors, we were really committed to the process, and we decided to treat the paper as a priority. So we paused on other projects that we were working on. And quickly, in terms of the challenges during the publishing process, it was really adhering to the editorial requirements before and even after we had written our manuscript. After we addressed the reviewers' comments, I think we had too many pages that we needed to reduce. Writing for the reader outside of the context was one of the things that was challenging for us because we understood what we wanted to say, but someone outside of the context did not understand that, and we had to explain. So repositioning the paper, selling an African perspective, and developing the theory. And in terms of developing the theory, they directed us to talk about the archetypes. And the archetypes, we didn't know how to actually develop the archetypes or to develop the forms of the institutional logics and the companies that were actually manufacturing the vaccines, and how we're going to take those archetypes and develop them into a typology, which eventually became our contribution. So this was a huge learning curve. And I went back to the journal and looked at all the papers that were published, and I saw how rigorous they were in displaying their findings. So we had to elevate our level of thinking. And this meant that we had to go back, reanalyze the data, and look for new insights and theorizing. And the context was absolutely important for us to elaborate. And on the softer things, we also had imposter syndrome. Of course, we're dealing with a big journal, and we were drowning in the feedback. There was just so much that we needed to do, and that caused us to have a little bit of anxiety here and there. But we managed to work on it because the feedback was quite clear, and we had to make a decision whether to include a top scholar or not in the process of dealing with the reviews. Because as Africans, we normally think if you have a big name on your paper, you will be accepted for publication. But we wanted to take the risk and work on the measure revisions by ourselves as scholars based in Africa, in South Africa to be specific, to see how far we would get. And these are the typologies that we actually came up with from the review process. When we started, we didn't have the typologies or the archetypes of the institutional logics that drives vaccine manufacturing. I will not talk about them. They are in the paper. It's just to demonstrate you the rigor that we had to go through in developing the archetypes. After the archetypes, we focused on the constellations of the logics, the combinations of the different logics, and how they affect or influence vaccine manufacturing. And this became the typology that we eventually created from the research. So in conclusion, I think the world is ready for the African story. Do not be afraid to take your ideas out there, but do a good job that represent where you come from. Be clear when you're communicating the what about the African context. Danger of familiarity with the context is that sometimes we miss out the nuances that are interesting to other scholars out there. Push yourself to theorize, whether incremental, disruptive, breakthrough, or radical. Get good data, even though it is challenging. Work on the revisions diligently, and make sure that you are open to learning about new things and learn about the journal's ways of publishing, and manage co-author dynamics when you are publishing at this level, because that is really important, and ask for help where necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation. Very interesting. I know that we would have questions for her, but just as we said, I would like to keep all the questions for the end. So if you have questions for Anastasia, then please you can put them in the chat, and then towards the end we'll read from there for the Q&A. Okay. Um, Thank you very much once again, Professor Mama Bolo, for that. And without further ado, I would go ahead to introduce the second speaker for the day. That is Professor Jamal Elbaz, and he's a full professor in operations management and supply chain at Ibn Zor University in Morocco. Um, His research interests include sustainability in supply chains, risk management, and corporate social responsibility. His publications have been featured in many journals within this field, such as IJOPM, IJPE, Annals of Operations Research, Journal of Business Ethics, and so on. Professor Elbaz has been awarded the Fulbright Scholarship at the College of Charleston and is the chair of the African Working Group, Sustainable Supply Chains and Business Continuity. He's also a visiting professor at Strasbourg University and a member of numerous OM and SCM associations, including Informs, AIRLSCM, to name a few. Please, would you join me in welcoming Professor Elbaz as he shares his presentation with us now?
Thank you, Dominic. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you clearly.
Yes, I hope the screen has been shared of my laptop with you guys. Can you confirm?
Yep, I
Yes.
can see your screen as well.
Uh,
If you want to go into presentation mode, maybe F5 or so.
Right? Oh,
Jamal,
yes.
please, are you presenting, projecting it from your end?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. I thought, all right, that's fine. So let me
Do you want
give,
to share the screen? You want to share the
yeah,
PowerPoint file?
yes, I've already shared it. I don't know.
Okay,
Aneke, can
so
you see what I've shared?
Um, we see Jamal, I think.
Okay, Jamal, that's fine. Go ahead and share yours. Okay.
Okay, so hello everyone, and I'm quite happy to be part of this initiative of this IJOPM webinar, and I'm also overjoyed to see some of the friends and colleagues also sharing their perspectives. I mean, Bilhadi is my friend who will take the floor later on, and I am also happy to see some LinkedIn friends and acquaintances and some scholars that I've met throughout the years also taken part of this webinar. So I've been assigned the task of talking about opportunities of doing research in Africa in operations and supply chain management field. And throughout the years, I have seen so many challenges, and I have also been successful in publishing several papers. And I would like to share a little bit of my knowledge in that area. And please understand that I'm in no way capable of giving a broad perspective or specific perspective, rather about everything that has been done in operations and supply chain management research in Africa. But I'll try to zoom in and talk about general trends, and I'll talk about also my perspective as a scholar, as a researcher in supply chain management and operations management. And I would like to also encourage scholars from Africa to try to seek publications in journals like IJOPM and other journals. And I was really happy to hear about Anastasia's experience with IJOPM. It was always an eye-opener to see how other scholars are succeeding in Africa or in other developing countries in publishing their work and attracting the interest of the community about the peculiarities and the specific characteristics of the African context. And again, when we talk about the African context, of course, it's a huge continent that has several countries, several regions, and in a way, it is really puzzling to talk about the African context when we know exactly that there are some areas, some regions that have different aspects, and there are so many things really to explore and in management research in general, in management science and operations management. And it is so refreshing to see that journals like IJOPM are paying attention and are developing such initiatives. I mean, it has started a few years ago, and let's not forget the excellent work of Kariska and Professor Goki, who has done a lot of efforts to shed light about research in operations management and supply chain management in African context. Let me just start by giving the outline of my short presentation. I will first of all talk about my previous and my research papers that have been conducted in African countries, and I will share just a short summary about my experience with the IJOPM back then in 2017. I guess that that was the first paper that has been published in IJOPM about Morocco, and I'm not sure, but maybe the editors-in-chief have the exact data. There are not so many papers in IJOPM about African countries, but luckily that has changed a few years ago, and specifically in 2022 and 2023, we have papers now by Anastasia and Amin, who prove that when there is a novelty, when there is a contribution, or when there is a theoretical insights, your paper, your manuscript could be published in prestigious journals and outlets when people think that it's not very accessible or difficult to publish in. Then the next axis of this presentation would be related to a short review that I did a few years ago when I made a presentation at Kelly Business in Indiana, Kelly Business School in Indiana University. It is a review that would help us see the general and broad orientations and trends of operation and supply chain management research in African countries. Unfortunately, I did not have the time to update it, but I believe that most of those trends and orientations have remained the same. I mean, it might have changed quite a bit, but the main thing is that this review, the summary, would help us to see some of the peculiarities and some of the interesting aspects. This is the third point of the presentation. What is unique, peculiar, and interesting about operation supply chain management phenomena in African countries? And I mean, of course, you could delve further and you find that there are some regions that have also more unique aspects to them, and all of those aspects could be very interesting. And again, not only for our field in operations and supply chain management, but in management science and in business and management studies in general. Then the last point is related to probably the potential, the opportunities that would exist in conducting operations supply chain management research in Africa. And there's an important point here that I think in the Q&A, there would be so many questions about it, how to make scholars, African scholars, more visible in journals, in several statistics that exist about publications or literature reviews. We unfortunately have not sufficient publications from African scholars or sufficient publications on African countries. Now, how to change that is frankly speaking a daunting task, and of course we will try to do efforts, each one from their own side, and but again, if we have accumulated initiatives like this one of IJOPM, like that previous initiatives that have been conducted by a Journal of Supply Chain Management and other journals, of course, would probably follow, then we might have see a change, positive change, in which we would see more work from Africa and more work on Africa. And what is more interesting is that we learn from Africa rather than try to come up with theories, and rather try to come up with frameworks, models, and try to apply them by force, or try to apply them on African countries. What is, I suppose, the goal of this initiative is that we have the own perspective from Africa, or from African scholars. So I'm going to be very concise and very synthesizing all of those points, and I will try to put the other resources on my LinkedIn page, and of course those in the audience could reach out to Dominic and Anikan, and of course we could have more discussion, and my publications and the publications of Amin and Anesthesia could be shared by them, and from then on we could develop further and constructive work together. So I started doing research a few years ago. I'm probably the oldest of this panel in terms of when I started doing research. I mean, I'm talking about Anesthesia and Amin and myself. I started with publications related, first of all, to literature review about research, supply chain research, operations management research in the African continent. That was my publication in 2018 in the International Journal of Logistics Management. And then before that, I have been lucky to say, that is the adjective that I would use. I have been lucky to publish my first paper on green practices and environmental initiatives of third-party logistics in Morocco. That was published in IJOPM in 2017. If I remember correctly, the editor-in-chief was Steve Brown, and my experience has been also very insightful, and I would not say that it was similar to the one that Anesthesia have been talking about, but it was helpful. And I guess what characterizes IJOPM is that they have fast system in which you have the assessment of the paper in a very short time, in a very short lead time. Then on, from then on, I have started to publish in several journals. Journal of Manufacturing and Technology Management in 2017. That was about reverse supply chain practices in Morocco. And then I continued doing research, and the recent one, which was related to Africa, is organ supply chain, transplants and blood supply chain in Nigeria with my friend Timidayo Akinwole, who is now in the University of Missouri in St. Louis. And then I have several upcoming research projects, mainly dealing with digital transformation processes of Moroccan firms, frugal innovation in humanitarian supply chain management field. And then I have also a research project on blockchain use and role in the mining industry that would involve scholars from Ghana, from Morocco, and from South Africa. So to prepare for this webinar, I have looked back on the presentation that I did, and this is the result of a retrieval process of publications in Web of Science on Africa and African scholars in the field of supply chain management and the field of operations management. And throughout the years, the encouraging point is that we have started to see since 2017 an increase and surge in publications in several journals. And incidentally, 2017 happens to be the year in which I published my first paper in IJOPM. I don't like to say that I was the instigator or who was the triggering behind that, but since then, I'm happy to see that there are several an increase in publication. However, such increase is mainly characterized by a focus on conceptual work, mainly papers that mobilize reviews or mathematical operations and optimization, that sort of thing. And the minority is represented by empirical work, which can be explained by several factors like the difficulty in obtaining data, the difficulty in having the cooperation and collaboration with stakeholders and parties involved, and several of those aspects. I believe Amin would have the time to elaborate on in his presentation. We have a low research productivity by scholars, and let's not forget that it is quite recent that scholars from African universities have started to be interested in publishing their work in.
Sorry, Jamal, just to say, because we are conscious of the time and we have a third speaker, so if you can just maybe wrap up in 1 minute or so, we can keep questions at the end of the seminar. Thank you, and really sorry for that.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I got carried away. I don't have a watch near me. So basically, we have several orientations and topical areas in research. You have research on sustainability and green supply chain management. We have trends in technology and digital transformation. We have also research on risk management and resilience. After the pandemic, as you might know, several papers were conducted, several researches were conducted in that field. So I will start at what is unique and interesting about operation and supply chain management phenomena in Africa, and leave the rest for the Q&A. What we have is mostly research that focuses on structured and organized supply chain management, whereas we have so many aspects that are completely forgotten. Let's not forget that in several African countries, there is a huge market share by informal and Black economy. And most of African continents, we have in several regions a fragile context characterized by war, famine, natural disaster, geopolitical instability, with several effects, negative effects on human operations. And I'm giving the example of Sudan and Ethiopia and other countries. And the encouraging thing is that we have in African countries some community-based supply chain management and supply chains in general, operations that are built on collaborative models in agriculture and artisanal industries. We have an interesting phenomenon which is frugal local innovation, which means that in some African countries, like in Kenya or like in Ghana, we develop some creative adaptations and technologies, for instance, mobile payment systems. And that is, in my opinion, something to explore in further research. We have still natural resources supply chains that are related to water and that are related to energy. Several African countries are exporters of oil and raw materials. And we have also the interesting thing is that environmental and ethical considerations are also worth pursuing and are particularly interesting for several countries like Ethiopia, like Kenya. For instance, the application of fair trade principles in several raw materials, coffee, and resource-rich regions. So basically, I would stop here, and
Yeah.
sorry for taking
No,
and going overboard. And thanks again.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Jamal. And obviously, like I said earlier, I know how these things, we become very excited about it and get carried away.
Yeah,
We're really
that's
sorry. We wish we would really love to listen to you. It's just because of the timing, that we're conscious to keep this at 90 minutes mark. So thank you very much for your presentation. We'll still have more time at the end for Q&A, hopefully.
absolutely,
So we can, but
absolutely.
thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, our last speaker, but definitely not the least, is Associate Professor Amin Beladi from Rabat Business School in Morocco. He has over 8 years of experience as a consultant in one of the leading industrial companies in Morocco and in Africa generally. His expertise is around industrial engineering, specifically lean manufacturing, supply chain management, Industry 4.0, and sustainability. He's published in many international peer-reviewed journals, including many prestigious ones such as IJOPM, IJPE, Supply Chain Management, International Journal of Production Research, Technology Forecasting, and Social Change, to name a few. And without further ado, I would like to hand over the microphone, the floor to Associate Professor Amin Beladi.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, the editorial team of IJOPM for this initiative to promote African research. Thank you also to Anna and Jamal for their presentation. So it was insightful, and as usual, Jamal share interesting insights, and we learn from his experience. So he has a lot of experience in African context. So my presentation will be on the challenges and we encounter in Africa in doing research and publishing in Africa, and how to mitigate. So some reflections. So those are not definitive thoughts, definitive actions, but are just some insights and some reflections based on my personal experience. So let's move on. So, so just to let you know about what we are doing. So within my research team at Rabat Business School, we are investigating. So our goal is to make is to design and advance resilient and sustainable agri-food supply chain. So agri-food supply chain in Africa is one of the most important and significant supply chains in Africa, because it shapes the food sovereignty of African people and also of global population, because as you know, Africa has the potential to feed itself and to feed also the planet. So we work practically on three transformative teams. First one is sustainable resilience and sustainability. So we study ways to mitigate climate change risks and economic disruption through robust supply chain strategies. Also, food justice. So this team explores equitable access to food resources, ensuring vulnerable communities are not left behind, and reducing inequalities in Africa. And third, regenerative practices to advance sustainable farming methods, improving soil health, and reducing carbon footprint. So we believe that those um, those topics would advance and would make contribution and provide actionable frameworks for resilience and sustainability, bridging the gap between local realities and global theories, and offering policy recommendation for sustainable agriculture transitions. So, in order to talk about the challenges in doing research in Africa, so from my experience, I can name some, so I can divide the challenges into contextual challenges and academic challenges. So for the contextual one, we can I can emphasize limited access to relevant and reliable data. So this remains a persistent issue, especially in informal supply chain sectors. So basically, we are working on agri-food supply chain, and most of agricultural activities in Africa is informal. This was a big issue. Also, the research ecosystem is somehow fragmented and often isolate researchers. So it reduces opportunities for collaboration across African regions. And also, we encounter resource constraints such as inadequate tools and funding. So not a lot of institutions in Africa provide support to research, to impactful research, and it is so we are facing fierce competition at the global level to attract funding in order to fund and finance our research in Africa. So now turning to academic barriers. So first, there is a global perception bias where African-focused research is undervalued and dismissed as region specific. So, because people, and we can understand that. So, they are looking for some generalizable insights. And when we are focusing on Africa, so they feel that our insights cannot be generalized. And also, publishing in high impact journal is challenging due to skepticism around methodological rigor and global relevance. So, it is an image that we have a shared responsibility to change, and also lack of mentorship and training for early career researchers that exacerbates these issues. Okay, so now I will share some reflections on how to overcome these challenges. So as I said, this is not finding solutions, but this is just to maybe start the reflection, the reflection on how to address these challenges. So I propose some practical solutions. So I believe that overcoming these challenges is a shared responsibility between researchers in and from Africa and the scientific community in general. So for researchers, we need to develop contextual frameworks aligned with global theories, like, for example, DCV, like ensuring and maybe some advancing some theories, institutional theory and other theories. And we need to ensure that local relevance and global acceptance should be met. So we need to ensure that. Also, we need to strengthen the methodological rigor by combining, for example, mixed method and robust theoretical foundation. So this can alleviate the problem of maybe lack of data, and this can also give some deepness in our findings and our insights. And also, we can strategically target special issues in journals or this initiative. So maybe we should uh, inform, we should share between us those special issues and those initiatives that can promote research and publications in Africa. Also, the scientific community and journals need to help. So they need to encourage submissions from underrepresented regions by providing developmental feedback. And it is great to see IJOPM taking the lead in that way. But we hope that other journals will do the same as soon as possible. Also, we need to maybe we need to think of us maybe also in IJOPM to create special issues that highlight African research and provide mentorship opportunity to early career scholars. Maybe we can promote that. So in general, we need to foster our collaboration. So we need to keep hand on hand in order to advance the research in Africa. So, in conclusion, African research holds significant potential to address global supply chain challenges. The world needs Africa, and also Africa needs the world. So, our vision should be to ensure consistent advancing research on topics, on important topics that can help African contexts like the agriculture supply chain and others, or maybe the healthcare supply chain as presented by Anna, or the logistics as presented by Professor James. So we need to collaborate, and collaboration is key for us, researchers, journals, and institutions, in order to address those challenges and foster solutions. So this is just a call to action in order to collaborate researchers and researchers, journals, and institutions. Together we can create a more equitable and sustainable future for operations and supply chain research worldwide. And feel free to ask if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Amin. That's very concise as well, sticking to the allocated time. So I'll open up the floor now to questions. Just looking through the chat, and I see that some conversation has been going on there with Jens and responding to mainly some of those questions. Just to highlight as well that the link to all of the papers that the speakers in this webinar are referring to are also in the chat. So maybe if I don't know if to say, maybe when you're struggling to sleep at night, if you feel you're bored a little bit, you could look at this or read them. No, actually, they're actually very interesting papers that really highlight this African context that we're really looking at. I'll leave the floor open to anyone who has questions for either or all of the speakers that we had. Just to recap, Anastasia talked about her experience publishing in IJOPM. It was a positive experience, challenges also, and lessons learned. And then we had Jamal, who discussed about opportunities in doing OSCM research in Africa. Obviously, very important and very interesting. And then Amin had just discussed some challenges as well as how we can overcome these challenges. So I'll leave the floor open. I don't know if there's anyone that has any question. If not, please feel free to put the comments or the question in the chat, and we'll try to address them.
Yeah. And again, so there were 3 questions received prior to the session, and I think we've already addressed them. Speakers have addressed them. One was about, they wanted to know more about the journal, and the other one, how to publish in the journal. There's a third question. Let me see if I could bring it up. It's very specific. It says, let me see. No, I think there was one particular question. I think it's was from a postdoctoral student who wanted to know how to publish in the journal, and I think Jean and Hugo covered that. Yeah, so I don't know if there are other specific questions that anyone would like to ask about either the initiative, the Africa initiative, about the journal, or they have for the speakers. Maybe I could. Okay.
Maybe just to, I guess, to jump in quickly. Yes, so all information obviously on the website in terms of manuscript submission, as I said, and I think Hugo mentioned as well. We are just in the process of updating the website, and we're a bit of the mercy of the publisher. So it may take a few weeks for us, but again, anything up to date is also on the LinkedIn channel. So definitely join us on the LinkedIn platform for any up to date news. Really, that's definitely up to date. Then, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jens.
Yeah. So I think I have a question for Anastasia. On the issue of institutional logic and how they influence vaccine manufacturing, distribution, and research in Africa, I'm not so sure whether your data set covered anything related to how these logics may clash, because we know in Africa, the institutions are many, particularly we know the informal ones, chieftaincy, religious leaders, they tend to influence policy decisions at all levels. And sometimes some of their demands can conflict with the other formal institutions. So I'm not so sure whether your data has something around that.
All right. Yeah, that is a nice question. Yes, so we saw that there were instances where there were clashes, but we didn't investigate that in depth. So we suggested that in our next study, we should focus on institutions that don't necessarily coexist as we're trying to formulate the constellations. But what we realized is in Morocco, which follows a monarchy in terms of the governance system. So for them to be able to manufacture vaccines, actually, they worked very well with the chief. So instead of, the traditional ways of leadership clashing with the policy, setup. So we found that the two actually worked very well, and that's why they were able to progress nicely with their vaccine manufacturing activities. So that was a pure example of how informal institutions that are long-standing can coexist with some of the formal institutions to advance vaccine manufacturing. And then when you go to Nigeria, so it was a total clash, especially when the different leaders were introduced, and the different leaders would have their own ways of doing things, and they have their own institutional makeup that influence the way they do things. If you think about Nigeria, if you go to another state, it's completely different from the previous one. So in that case, that's where we found that there was passive paralysis in terms of vaccine manufacturing, and they couldn't really move because there were so many clashes, especially when the different leaders were introduced in government. But we suggested that we need to explore more of the institutional clashes.
Thank you. Jeffrey, please, the floor is yours. Kindly unmute yourself. Hello, Jeffrey, do you want to ask a question? Okay. So whilst we wait for the next question, I have a question that maybe Amin and Jamal will try to answer. So Amin is trying to propose one way that we can overcome challenges. Trying to make sure that research from Africa appeals to the global community. And one way to do that is to work on existing well-established concepts known to the developed countries. But then it raises questions about the extent to which some of these established theories can be used to explore some of the interesting and underexplored phenomenon that Jamal talked about. So I'm not too sure how the two of you can help us resolve this problem.
Okay, I'm not sure who's going to take it first. I mean, you want to start or? Okay, from my side, theory is always a challenge. Theory is always a problem, especially in our field of operations and supply chain management. And I'm frankly speaking, I'm still puzzled about what theory could be applied in such and such contexts. And I am trying, above all, to focus on the reality of the field. What drives my research, although I am quite fascinated by the research of a theoretical perspective. What drives me first is to look for a practical solution or to help companies understand better how they could run their operations and their practices. At least that's the way I see it. And then from the ground, maybe we could establish theories or we could develop theories. At least that's how I see things.
Okay, good. I mean, your take on that.
Yeah, so I join GMS, so I believe that theory is challenging, and Africa, I think in Africa, research in Africa is not mature enough in order to be generalized. And I think that rather than using or rather than doing this
Hear me?
perspective, and start with
Hi,
some
can you hear me, please?
Yes, Jeffrey, we can hear
yeah.
you, but someone is on the floor. You can come
Hello,
in
can you hear me?
afterwards. Hello, Jeffrey. Okay, so Jamal, sorry, I mean you can continue. Jeffrey will come in after you are done.
Okay. So I was saying that instead
Yeah,
of focusing on
yeah. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, Jeffrey, please.
Okay, okay.
You can ask your question after the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
all
was
right,
having issues with my microphone. I apologize.
that's fine. Okay, thank you.
So I was saying that instead of some positivist views in developing theories and in seeking generalizable results and insights, we can, for example, start with some exploratory studies to investigate from a critical reality perspective to see what is happening in Africa, and then we try to come up with in the first to come up with specific solutions for Africa, and then we can learn from those solutions to generalize to other similar countries and maybe for the at the global level. So this is my point of view.
Okay, but any other member can contribute to this question. Any other participants, if anyone has a different view on this question. I mean, some of you are very experienced, and you could provide or share your thoughts on how we can handle this challenge.
Yeah, happy to quickly jump in. Yeah, I guess there are different ways. I guess we're all struggling with or sometimes struggling with theoretical development, independently of how long you have been in the field. Yeah, I think there's definitely ways of refining, elaborating existing theories, but also I think the other way around to, as some of the colleagues already said, start almost from fresh in terms of what are the huge differences, I guess, that we see across the African continent that might be very different from some of the theories that were initially developed, obviously in Europe, or having European data and North American data. So I think there are two ways. So one possibly about refining, elaborating existing theory or theoretical concepts. And then the other way, which is probably more difficult, definitely more time consuming, and takes definitely a much longer time, is to developing new theoretical insights. But I think a good starting point might also be to explore what has been already published in our field or generally in management, using or building on the African setting or African data. And see how you can contribute to that. So that might be at least a practical starting point, I guess, where I would start.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can move on to the next Jeffrey, will you ask your question before Lara comes in?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. And it's good to be here. I think I missed the beginning of the session because I was having some connectivity issues. My question. So I'm a doctoral candidate with the University of Northampton. I'm reading a Doctor of Business Administration, and my research is into the area of inventory management, precisely manual inventory management within in Africa, in Ghana. It's a Ghanaian context, and I was directed here by one of my supervisors, Dr. Professor Elias, and he wanted me to join this session and find out about opportunities. I'm at the stage where I've secured supervisory approval to submit my final work, and they're of the view that I could do at least about 2 or 3 publications from the work that I've done. So I wanted to know and I'm sure you may have covered that in the time that I wasn't on here.
Yeah.
So if you could just touch on that briefly on the way I should go about it. My key thing is, do I submit my final work first and then extract the portions of the papers I want to publish? Should I send my final work over, my thesis over to you to look at and direct me on the areas I would need to that I can publish? I have ideas on what I intend to do, but I would need the guidance on the way to go about it. So that's the question that I want to ask. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, will you answer the question? Oh, Hugo.
Yeah, I mean, happy to go first. Obviously, we'll make the webinar available if you feel, as we said, so the whole initiative is initially proposal based. So feel free to send a short proposal to the email that we set up, and again, Dom and Anniken will remind you of that in a second before finishing the webinar, and then we can provide feedback. But obviously, if you do feel very comfortable with, and you have a full paper obviously already developed, then you don't necessarily have to go through the proposal stage and you submit through the normal route your paper. So again, depends on where the paper is and what process or what stage is it in. If it's early on in your research and you want feedback, we can obviously support you, or the team of the Africa Initiative can support you with that and give guidance and feedback on that. But obviously, if you have already gone through a fully fledged research program or project and have developed a full paper, then yeah, I definitely suggest you obviously use conferences to present it in the first place. But if you feel comfortable, it has been developed strongly, and you feel ready for it to be submitted, then yes, do submit via the normal submission route, as you can see obviously on our website as well. So I guess it depends a little bit. So short answer is it depends where you are. What we want to do is obviously to give feedback very early on. But obviously, if you already have gone through that whole stage or whole process of research and you're at that end stage in terms of submission and you have a full paper, then yeah, please do submit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I have clarity, are you saying that I can submit to you my final thesis or the extracts of the papers that I would want to have published? I just need the clarity on that. Yep.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, obviously we're not publishing or considering a thesis, but obviously you have to adhere to the formatting rules of the journal that you're submitting to. So do have a look at the IJOPM website. There are all the formatting rules, including obviously the word count or the max word count that we have. But yes, you can obviously parts of your thesis you can submit to us as part of a normal manuscript submission route. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Our time is already up. So unfortunately, we need to end the Q&A, but you can still send us your questions by using the email that we have set up for this initiative, and we'll be happy to address your questions. All right, so a couple of things to note before we conclude. So we are just starting and building a team for this initiative. So we hope that many of you who are more experienced will want to be involved in this initiative, okay, in terms of the team and also providing support, such as in the area of organizing workshops. So if you are knowledgeable about something like methodology or how to address data collection challenges in Africa and you want to organize a workshop for the community, you can contact us and we can arrange something, okay? So please get involved. So as Yan suggested, very soon the journal's website will be updated and you'll have more information about the Africa Initiative. So if you have a proposal, please, you can send it to us via this email provided here. And we, the journal seeks to publish a paper related to the Africa Initiative. And so you can expect that papers. Okay. And if you want to know more about the initiative and also the journal, please kindly follow us on our LinkedIn page. Okay. All right. So that will be all for today. Thank you so much for making time for this session. And sorry that we've gone beyond our time. We hope you found the session useful. And we hope to also hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm staying around in case someone has some questions. I think Laura had her hand up, so
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
very
sorry.
happy to stay on. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, everyone. It was lovely to meet you. Thank you for joining. Hopefully, we can hear from you again. Thank you.
Laura,
Thanks, everyone.
I'm sorry that I
Thank you.
forgot about you.
Thank
No problem. I was just about to type everything, but yeah, I think I can ask you
Probably
all.
easier
So
to
no,
ask. Yeah.
yeah, I think it is. I'm faster in talking than typing. So my question was a bit related to the mid-long-term perspective, because if I understood correctly, you also intend to strengthen the collaboration with African institutions, or also have kind of some seminars, webinars there or whatsoever. So I was interested in whether you have already ideas on how to handle this, or is that more like what you have in mind right now and you want to build that further the coming or the time to come?
Yeah, so I will go first and maybe Ian will come in. So already we've been working with a number of academic communities or institutions like Cariska and also Iroma. So we want to use these platforms to meet African scholars and also to exchange ideas. So that is what in the meantime we want to focus on doing, work with these institutions to build a community. So that is the current plan. But we also we welcome any ideas on how we can build that community.
Ken, do you want to add something?
And no, I've got nothing to kind of add. Nothing. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I guess just a few points. I guess what Tom said. So, I mean, ultimately we are reliant on the community. So we hope obviously that the community will take on the initiative, similar to, I guess, the success story of the Impact Pathways that we launched 3.5 years ago. I think that is important for and foremost. We're just at the moment typing up editorial, or Dom and Annie kind of have nicely put together an editorial which we hopefully will publish in the next month or two. So that will lay out the area, I guess, a little bit more. And then, yeah, the opportunities are to run a few workshops at the at a number of conferences, and then hopefully over time, again, depending on the interest of the community, for us to either run specific webinars on particular topics, particular regions in Africa, or particular challenges, and or even possible workshops on the ground, so from review development to publishing, helping with manuscript development and so on. So I guess it very much depends on the community and what the uptake is. But yeah, hence the hence the last slide, I think that Dom mentioned. Yeah, call for support, and depending on how much I guess how much we get back over the next 12 months, and then take it from there. But yeah, we have some ideas, and as Tom said, we are talking to a number of colleagues that could help. So we'll launch a few more things this year, and then we'll see again if it's very popular. Then we're happy to sort of branch out and mushroom in terms of the activities further beyond, I guess, the traditional sort of conference routes as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. Then now it's also a bit clearer on what that meant and what you have or envision for that part. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the other thing to say, it's I mean, the traditional conference route will go so far, but I think some of the initiatives may have to be done via webinar for various obvious reasons in terms of funding and so on. Yeah, and then we hope again, as Konstantin put in the chat as well, it is proposal based. We hope to sort of demystifying that whole process of getting your paper through the review process or working with us through the review process. And yeah, I very much hope that yeah, will be a big success. But thanks, yeah. And Hugo put down the address in the chat as well. So again, if you have any other questions, if you want to send us a proposal to review and provide some feedback, then do use the Gmail address as well. Yeah.